Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our program, Washtenaw Audubon's program this evening. We're super excited to have Jocelyn Anderson. She's one of my favorite people as well as photographers, but I think we'll introduce her momentarily. I'm Juliette Berger. I'm president of Washtenaw Audubon Society. Welcome to everyone who's here in the room and also to everyone on Zoom. So at the beginning of each program, I always read our diversity, equity, and inclusion statement so everyone knows that we are actively welcoming all members of the community. So, the birds Washtenaw Audubon pledges to protect differ in color, size, behavior, geographical preference, yes, and countless other ways. And as we honor and celebrate the equally remarkable diversity of the human species, Washtenaw Audubon considers the work of inclusion, diversity, and equity a top priority moving forward. We hope that in doing so, we can bring new creativity and energy to our work in Washtenaw County and beyond for birds and people alike. So respect, inclusion, and opportunity for people of all backgrounds, lifestyles, and perspectives will attract the best ideas and harness the greatest passion to shape a healthier, more vibrant future for all of us who share our planet. We believe that protecting and conserving nature and the environment transcends political, cultural, and social boundaries. As an organization, we're committed to increasing the diversity of our board, volunteers, members, and supporters. As an organization, Washtenaw Audubon strives to create a sense of community where all people can feel safe to explore nature and experience the wonder of birds. We respect the individuality of each member of our community and welcome all without discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, age, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, disability, national or ethnic origin, politics, veteran status, or any other status. All are welcome to bird with us and learn with us and to share our passion for birds and the environment. So welcome, everyone. We have several members of our board present today I wanted to introduce to you. Jessica Adamczyk is hosting our Zoom presentation, so she'll be paying attention to those of you who are online tonight. Mike Sefton is our vice president and program chair. So he arranged to have Jocelyn come to present to us tonight. Keith Dickey is here. He's our treasurer. Thanks so much for coming. And Diana Miller, who's our membership chair. If you are interested in membership, it's very affordable and she can help you out with that. David Elamoto helps out on our various committees, stewardship, and he's the t-shirt master of all masters. So get your stuff. That is true. Are there any new members here tonight who I could meet? Or we haven't met in person in quite some time, since last spring, maybe? So we'll get in person a little bit more as we go along. Welcome visitors. You don't have to be a member to attend any of our programs. You're more than welcome to be here and to attend any of our programs. Almost everything is open to any member of the public. Very few exceptions to that rule. Interesting bird sightings. That's what we usually do. I don't know whether anybody's seen anything cool lately out there in Washtenaw or beyond. Keith?
Yeah, Redmore screech owl at County Farm again.
Oh, Keith has seen the Redmore screech owl at County Farm again. That is great news. There was another hand up. Oh, Bonnie Panay.
Young 40.
Bald eagle is a yard bird. Downtown is
Ooh.
Another bell? Okay, go ahead. Hey. Yes, hey.
strike pose going into the trees.
Oh my goodness.
And a Cooper's hawk flew out. And then the eagle was circling in my yard and in the trees above Riverside Park for a few minutes. And
super.
away it went.
So Bonnie had a great story about a bald eagle, which is a yard bird now for her. And she also saw an interaction between the bald eagle and the Cooper's hawk. Great. And Bonnie and I were also out on Godfredson Road on Monday night where we saw the short-eared owl. So there is one at least there right now. Don't miss them. Not a great photo opportunity, but the hot tip is get out there right after there's been a snow, and you might see them out hunting during the day. Any other bird sightings that you want to share with us? Okay, going once, going twice. I wanted to make sure that we announce the Ann Arbor Christmas bird count, which is coming up on December 17th. There's the opportunity to register for the CBC on our website, and you can choose where you want to help out. We have the CBC count circle divided into 8 sections, and we could use all of your help. So Jessica here is one of our area leaders. Yeah, so if you want to volunteer for Jessica, go right ahead.
It's an amazing day.
It is.
Fun. Birders of all levels and abilities should feel comfortable.
Birders of all levels and abilities, fabulous. Yeah, and then we'll have right here in the evening starting around 5, we'll have a potluck on the 17th, and then we go through tallying up all the birds, which is super fun. Jaco Helderloos is our compiler for that. We have a weekend walk this Saturday at Gallup. Matt's going to be leading that. Matthew Spohr, who's our field trip chair, will be there. We have BIPOC walks scheduled into December. The next one is December 10th at Barton. That's for Black, Indigenous, and people of color and white allies. We're going to Belle Isle with Oakland Audubon Society on December 3rd, which is one of my favorite events to go to. We do a lot of driving around and using our scopes to look at things that are far away, and then we do a beautiful walk in the woods and get to see some songbirds and other cool stuff. And the same day, Victor Chen, who's our education chair, who leads the BIPOC walks, is also doing a duck walk for families at noon at Ford Lake from the Grove Street entrance. We have a trip to Argentina coming up in the summer in August. So if you're interested in that, please contact Bryn Martin, and all of his contact info is on our website in the blurb about the Argentina trip, which you can find listed under events. The Ecuador trip, which is up there, is full. So that's the announcement I have about that. I am going to introduce Mike Sefton, and Mike, you can talk about our upcoming programs and introduce Jocelyn for us. Thanks.
Coming up in January is Rich Keith and Brenda Keith, his wife, doing a program on the MOTUS towers, MOTUS. They're radio frequency towers that track wildlife as it's flying over and produce statistics as well as real-time data on migrations of birds and other animals. But tonight, we're pleased to have Jocelyn Anderson. Jocelyn is an award-winning photographer. She's won a number of awards from National Audubon, Michigan Audubon, and a few others. Please welcome Jocelyn Anderson.
Got it. Well, thank you everyone for coming in person and also in Zoom. I am super excited to talk about some of my favorite bird photos that I've taken over the years. I really got into bird photography about 6 years ago, fell in love with it, so I'm excited to share some of my favorite photos with you. So to get started, I know I'm talking to an audience that loves birds, respects birds, but ethics are incredibly important. So I've listed a couple of links here that I've found incredibly helpful. I've definitely made mistakes in the past, and I'm only human. I'm going to make mistakes in the future. Always appreciate gentle education, but I found these to be a fantastic resource. So if you're ever curious about where some guidelines are, these are all great resources. So some of my highlights, National Audubon Photography Awards. I was the 2020 Michigan Audubon Photography Contest winner. Got an honorable mention this year, and these are photos that I will be showcasing through our slideshow. National Audubon Society occasionally highlights my photo in their social media feeds, and so does the Cornell Lab, which they don't tell me about, so it's always like a nice surprise when I see one of my photos pop up every once in a while. And I've selected these photos. I went for 2 different categories. So the first one is composition, like I really like the colors, the way the bird was posed. Or if it's telling a story, like maybe it's not the sharpest of photos, but it really connected with me about what the bird was doing. So this is a quote that I really connected with by John Burroughs. The lure of the distance and difficult is deceptive. The great opportunity is where you are. And this really connected with me because I don't travel very much at all for bird photos. All the photos you see here are within a 30-mile radius of where we are. So I go to Kensington Metro Park in Milford. We'll see some photos here from Mathi, Gallup Park, Nichols Arboretum. So we have just so many great opportunities for photography just right in our area. So I'm going to start off, this is probably my most popular photo. And the funny thing about this photo is that I almost didn't post it, and it's still going around the internet today. So this is an osprey carrying a stick, and he's being, or she is being chased by a red-winged blackbird. So this was taken at Kensington, and I was looking for warblers, and I saw 0 warblers that week, but I saw this event. And the story behind this is that there is a osprey nest at Kensington, and so this bird was grabbing a stick for the nest, doing a little stick nest maintenance, and red-winged blackbirds, being so territorial, was chasing this osprey, and I saw this on the far side of the pond, and I was like, all right, well, there's nothing else going on, so I might as well take a photo of what's going on here. And then this photo was one of the ones that I was able to grab from that event, and I've seen captions of branch manager and assistant branch manager, which I was like, I wish I had thought of that. But the reason I didn't post this, and I don't know if you can tell from the screen, maybe some of our Zoom viewers can tell, it's not the razor sharp feather detail, but it's a fun photo. It tells a good story. So really glad that I posted this photo and other people got to enjoy and see this story. So this was the honorable mention for this year for Michigan Audubon. And this was taken right outside on the pond in Mathi, which is fantastic for taking photos of great blue herons and great egrets. I think it's the same birds that keep showing up because they don't really seem to mind people hanging around the pond, but they like to walk around an edge of the pond where the light is behind you, which is fantastic. And apparently there are a ton of crayfish in this pond because they are just feasting every time I come across them. So this was, I was crouched down pretty low because I try and get all my birds on eye level. So it's a really great way for me to get my squats in for the day. And so in this case, I just held down the shutter and I was able to capture this moment where this bird was able to get a nice snack. This is also taken at Mathi. And again, the lighting here is so great, and there's spots where you can really get some great photos. And this was when the great blue heron was just taking off to find a different spot along the pond to eat some more crayfish. This is the great egret that likes to hang out here at Mathi. And egrets can be a little tricky to shoot because those beautiful white feathers will overexpose so easily. But Mathi being the amazing place that it is, there's some trees that'll offer some shade. So that's where this egret was. So I was able to not have the whites on this photo get overexposed. And also you get those beautiful greens, a little touch of purples in the background. So really posed nicely for this one. All right, Canada geese. So I know it's kind of like, oh boy, Canada goose, right? So I show up, we're here at Mathi, pull into the parking lot, it's like 6 a.m. and these geese were just honking away. So this is a visual depiction of what a honk looks like. So the humid morning, it's summer, and I noticed when this one goose, he was just going to town with his honker, that these little puffs of his breath would show up. So in this case, I was shooting into the sun to capture that visual depiction of a honk. But I like this photo because it's like, oh, it's just the goose, but like you can get a great picture of a goose. So this little cutie, so this was taken at Kensington Metro Park, and this was featured on eBird's main page. And this was another case where they don't let you know. So you go to the page, you're like, ooh, that looks familiar. So this is the only photo I have of a kinglet showing his red crown. And this was a case of him chasing around another kinglet. And after chasing around this other kinglet, he paused for a moment on a branch and he just shook himself and then he puffed out his crown. And I was lucky to be able to capture that moment when he's showing that beautiful red crown of his. More kinglets. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. So I like this one because if you look closely, so kinglet, well, the golden crown kinglets, I'm not sure if the ruby crowns do, but they have a single feather over their nostril. So if you look closely, like you can see that detail. So besides looking like an adorable puffball, you can really see that beautiful detail of the bird. Okay, well, I took this photo makes me laugh so much. It's like, he's like a tiny round king, like surveying his kingdom. Like he just looks so pleased with himself. So this is a photo I took recently. This was taken at Kensington Metro Park. And kinglets are such busy little birds. And this little guy decided to hop around in the oak leaves for a little bit. And I just think he looks, or she, it might be a she, looks just very pleased with themselves as they look over their kingdom of oak leaves. Okay, so this is a photo where I really like, because this tells us a story. So these are, it's a blue-gray gnatcatcher couple, and I was watching, they're being very chatty. And if you look at the male is on the right with that fierce eyebrow. There's a little bit of what I think is cattail fluff. So the female had brought over this fluff and set it next to the male, and they had a conversation. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I went walking around the park for a few hours, and then a few hours later, we have this. They're starting to build their nest. So their nest involves spider silk and lichen. And I thought that was so amazing to be able to see where, I don't know if the female was like, this is where the nest is going. And the male was like, okay. And they started working on it. And then 9 days later, we've got little gnatcatchers. And this is less than 24 hours before they fledge. So you can see like that beautiful nest of lichen. Well, it's decorated with lichen. But that was a special moment to like see these little ones grow and then fledge the nest. And here's another, I just think their nests are absolutely beautiful. This is a gnatcatcher that was here on Mathi, and that's a big nest. This one went big. So this blue jay won the 2020 Michigan Audubon photography contest. And I shot this with a shutter speed of 8,000, which that was a mistake. I did not mean to do that. Like I can't think of a reason why you would need to shoot that high. But what was happening in this shot is that this blue jay was coming down and a red-bellied woodpecker was flying towards the blue jay. So the blue jay shifted and flared out those beautiful tail feathers and gave a little bit of a unique angle. So because I was lucky and then it was sunny out and that at 8,000 frames a second, it was able to capture this image. But I just thought it was another example of like, they're like, oh, blue jays, but they are absolutely gorgeous birds. So we got a blue jay in the background on this one. I like this one because the hawk, he's being harassed by some blue jays. This red-tailed hawk has some remains of a squirrel there. And I like this photo because the hawk kind of looks exasperated, like, oh my goodness, am I gonna have to leave? And then you have this blurred incoming blue jay coming full speed, about to give them a big bop on the head. So this is moments before they decided they needed to take off for a safer space where they were not being bopped on the head by blue jays. I like to call this the power couple. This was a snowy day at Kensington. There's a red-tailed hawk pair that likes to hang out near the nature center. And so this was when I just got there. It was one of those days where it was very cold. Probably should not have driven my car in the snow. But then you get photos like this and makes it totally worth it. I did get snow tires this year, so now I can drive in even snowier weather. So this is a young red-tailed hawk. He had fledged or she could have fledged a couple weeks before. And it's got that curious tilt to their head because there was a pair of tufted titmice right behind me. So I'm taking photos and there's this tufted titmouse pair that's just, they're making their tufty calls and doing tufty things. And this bird was tilting their head back and forth. Like I could see they're probably thinking, can I eat that? And they did try. This bird flew directly over my head towards the tufties. The tufties didn't seem bothered because red-tailed hawks are not that fast. But this was a really special moment to see this bird figuring out, like, they look like a little hors d'oeuvre. Could I have one of those? But the tufties didn't seem too bothered by it. So this is another photo of one of the Kensington hawks. And this bird had just finished diving down into the undergrowth. And then I heard a sound of a mammal. It sounded like it was in serious peril. But the hawk came up and it didn't have anything in its claws, but it was posing right next to the nature trail for a little bit and gave some great photo opportunities, especially with shots like this. Like their eyes are just so fascinating to me. Like the detail is just gorgeous. So bald eagles, almost everyone I talk to loves and gets excited about eagles. So there is a bald eagle nest at Kensington, and where these birds are at, they are at the Great Blue Heron Rookery. And these birds like to take sticks from the Great Blue Heron nest. There's a lot of them. So they take the sticks from the Great Blue Heron nest, and then they will bring them to their nest. So on some cold winter mornings, they will be hanging out at the rookery. I like the blue sky, I like the lighting, and it kind of looks like they're playing leapfrog. So, like this photo. So here's a juvenile. I know there's some photographers that say juveniles are not that pretty, but I think they're gorgeous. I mean, the difference in the color in their feathers. So this is one of the juveniles at Kensington. They did a flyby overhead, just giving a really great look at those amazing feather textures and patterns. So this owl, a friend of mine told me about a part, I think it's Burns Stokes or Stokes Burns Stokes, thank you, Juliet. And they mentioned it was a great park, and I was like, I have my places that I like, and then I go to the same places that Very Much a Creature of Habit. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try something new. So she suggested this park, and I went there, and I heard American robins just going bonkers. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good time. There's usually something good around when you hear the robins causing a ruckus. And so there was this beautiful barred owl, and it was really close to the nature trail, maybe 10 feet up. And it was very just like trying to just have a nap. And like every 10 minutes or so, the robins would come in and cause a ruckus, and the robins would leave, and then they would come back. So I have not seen this owl since, but it was a very special moment. There's something about owls, like when you make eye contact with them, like it's electrifying. They're just incredible birds. So here is another barred owl, and this one, and I'm not sure, I would love to get more photos of barred owls, but if you look at the tail feathers on this bird, you can see two little hearts. I'm not sure if this is something that's common to barred owls, but I just thought that was a really sweet detail on this bird. And I posted this on Valentine's Day, of course. So this is a moment where northern cardinal, it's like, oh, it's a common bird. He was pretty close. I'm like, oh, I'll take some photos of him. He's posing pretty nicely. And if you look closely, there's an inchworm on his beak. So it looks like he's getting a little bit of a beak measurement there. I've gotten questions if the cardinal ate the inchworm. He did not. He just shook him off after a little bit. So this is my absolute favorite photo. So a couple of years ago, a Canada goose laid an egg in a sandhill crane nest, and the cranes chased the goose away, but they left the egg. And so this sandhill crane couple hatched the Canada goose, and then a couple days later, their sandhill crane colt hatched. And this is when the sandhill, this is when they're about a week old. And I remember the sandhill crane was still very young. Like it was kind of chilly out, and it was shaking because it was so cold. But I absolutely love this photo. Like what a beautiful little family traversing the bridge. And here they are walking along the side of the road, like they're all in sync, looking super cute. And here they are a little bit older, and the Canada goose, they were sitting down, the sandhill crane, it was so sweet. The sandhill crane walked over and sat next to the Canada goose, and then the Canada goose was doing a little bit of preening with the sandhill crane. It was just such a sweet scene. So this photo is one of the National Audubon Society's top 100 in their photography awards. And one of the things I didn't realize until I was looking at this photo, first of all, I love the texture of this photo, but not all sandhill cranes have their heart shape on their forehead. So this is one of the things, like I took this photo and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. That's something I never realized before. But love the texture, love the heart shape of this bird. More sandhill cranes. Kensington is fantastic for these birds. So I like this photo because it's like out for a Sunday walk. You can see they're a little damp from the morning dew, but they just like look like they're having a chat going down the nature path. So great crested flycatcher. So this is the female is in the back. She does all the work for the nest building. And the male kind of just, supervisor, he's just checking things out. He's making sure everything's okay. This is the only time I've witnessed great crested flycatchers building a nest. So that was a cool experience for me, and especially to be able to get them in the same shop while they're working on building their nest in a tree cavity. This photo was featured of a pileated woodpecker on one of the National Audubon Society's 10 fun facts about pileated woodpeckers. So this, I feel like this is a young one because he didn't quite know what he was doing. So he landed on this tiny, tiny branch, and he was swinging upside down for a few seconds. And so he kept trying to, he'd flap his wings to try and bring himself to perch upright, and then he would swing back down, it was very entertaining to watch. And there was another male in the area, which I'm guessing was Dad. But this bird, great to watch, love the colors in the background, just a beautiful bird. And here's a close-up shot of a male working on a tree on a snowy day. Like the white and the yellow against the snow, I think just really, really pops. So baby killdeers, and you can see, I didn't even notice this at the time. So killdeer chicks leave the nest within hours of being hatched. I don't know how many, but the one in the back is only a few hours old. And then you see the camouflage egg, which blends in really well. And then there's another killdeer that's on the right-hand side. This was taken at Independence Lake Park. And there's a stick you can see in the upper right-hand corner. Someone had very kindly made like a little teepee around the nest because they blend in so well. And then when I came back the next day, these little guys were running around and enjoying their new killdeer life, but they looked adorable. I call this one the tree hugger. So this downy woodpecker, he's actually rubbing he must have had an itchy spot. He's rubbing his face up against the tree. But I just think it looks like he's giving the tree a big hug, which seems fitting for a woodpecker. So I get a lot of questions on my socials of why the red-bellied woodpecker is called the red-bellied woodpecker. And this is a particularly colorful male. Some of them, especially on the face and the chest, but I really like how this branch really like brings your eye along to that tummy where you can really see that red stripe and where they get their name. So this was taken at Furstenberg, and I had never seen this before, but this must have been a very good nesting spot. So these two males were having a bit of a scrum. It led to some feather pulling. So they had been kicking at each other for a little bit, and this is when one of them decided that he had had enough and he was taking off, but the other bird decided to get in one more feather pull here, but very interesting to watch. So some warblers. So I live in Whitmore Lake, and a park that's just a few miles from me is Independence Lake Park. And there have been times where it has been magical for warblers. Like when I see warblers there, they're just absolutely everywhere. So this handsome Halloween fellow, American redstart, he was in a cloud of some other warblers, which I will show you. This is another one, a beautiful black and white warbler, which they often act like nuthatches. And I like this photo because black and white warblers, they can't scoot down trees like nuthatches do, but he's in that classic nuthatch pose, which I absolutely love. And he's also got a tasty snack. I don't know what that is, but he found something good to eat there. And again, this was at Independence Lake Park. The brown creeper, I chose this photo because the feather gradient, the color gradient on those feathers, I think is just absolutely beautiful and really shows how well they can blend into the side of the tree. Cedar waxwing enjoying a berry. So this is one of those moments where I'm looking at photos and I learned something that I did not learn before I looked at the photo. So if you look at their tongue, they've got two pointy spikes on it. So that really helps them push their berries that are like almost as big as their head down their throat. Red-winged blackbirds. So the males don't always help out with feeding the nestlings, but they sometimes will. This was taken at Kensington, and I have noticed this past year there have been less young ones there than previous years that I've been going there. And I think it's because of mink, because this year, and I've never seen this before, the mink were swimming around in the marsh and they were going after red-winged blackbird nestlings. And I'm wondering, some of the females didn't make it, but you can see, so red-winged blackbird males sometimes get a bad rap for not helping feed the little ones. This one's got a beak full of damselflies, so just want to give some props to our red-winged blackbird boys. So this is a young green heron. You can tell he's young both by the coloring. It's got a little more streaking on the chest, and also those really cute white fluffs on the top of his noggin. So I was laying on the ground for this shot, and I was super excited to see this bird. And anytime someone walked by, I was ready. I was ready to talk about what I was looking at, and absolutely nobody asked me. No one wanted to talk to me. That's okay. So he's walking further down this log, and he turned around to come back because he saw something, which actually turned out to be a really big bullfrog, which is when I got the shot when he was on the hunt. So this handsome fellow, this wood duck, was featured in the magazine Michigan Blue, and I really like how it emphasizes colors, those chubby cheeks. And I got this photo by squatting down. Again, I'm getting my workout in. And he was following a female wood duck, and the female wood duck didn't seem too concerned with the people along the boardwalk. He was a little more tentative, but he wasn't going to lose his lady. So when the female came around, I was able to take this photo of him as he was swimming towards the boardwalk. Again, I don't even know, they're just beautiful creatures, like incredible colors. And they're like, they're iridescent head feathers. Like this one was swimming in a small marsh, just unbelievably beautiful. So here is a wood duck couple, and they are doing some house shopping. So wood ducks have claws on their feet to help them grip these branches. So the male was following the female around, just seeing like where she preferred to put the nest. And this was a nest cavity that she was checking out, and you can really see the beautiful coloring on her wings. I don't think she nested in this location. The nest cavity opening may have been a little bit too big, but it was definitely fun to watch her check out different spots in the woods to see what would be a proper home. Okay, Virginia rail. So this is a Virginia rail getting a peck on the cheek. So this is a Virginia rail couple at Kensington, and the bird on the left was poking around, and he found something tasty. I think it was a leech, but he ran over to his partner, gave it to his partner, which she ate, and then she did a little bit of preening on his cheek, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is adorable. So I cut, but he just looks like, he's like, oh, I know. So cute, love them. So this is a Virginia rail chick. Look at those toes, like so cute, and they give the softest little peeping. So if you want to see Virginia rails, Kensington Metro Park has been a fabulous place to see them. I think they did 3 broods this year. It was a lot, but they are super cute, super squeaky, and I just love those long toes. So this is the Virginia rail that overwintered, not last winter, but the winter before, but this was taken on January 31st. And this bird made it through the winter. He was seen January, February, March, and also in the beginning of April. But wow, what a little trooper. I know some other fellow birders were like breaking the ice so they could find food. I don't know what exactly he was eating. He's just like, he's got like the Virginia rail version of a winter coat. Like he's so puffed up. This is like January in Michigan, but I'm happy to say that he made it through the winter. I didn't see him last winter. They probably decided that they were not doing that again and they were heading south. So this beautiful bird is a Wilson's snipe. This was taken along the Kensington Boardwalk. It was giving lots of good looks as it was probing around the edges, looking for tasty things to eat. And so this is one of the things I absolutely love about photography, because it'll enlighten me to things like I didn't notice with my human eyes. So if we go back to this photo, like long, straight beak, but if you look at this photo, the beak is bent a little bit, like the upper mandible is bent. And I was like, oh, they must be flexible beaks, which is like fun fact for me. Like my husband was like, but I thought that was super cool. So this is taken at Independence Lake Park. It's usually pretty good for yellow warblers, maybe not. And this past year it hasn't been as good, but like when I want to look for yellow warblers, that's where I go. Lots of males claiming their territory, like this handsome fellow is. This was taken in my backyard, and I just love that cherry pop of yellow. So this was taken in April, where I'm like, I'm ready for the warmer weather, ready for winter to be over, and then you see these beautiful yellow birds show up. I'm like, yes, this is a sign of spring. This is a photo that made the National Audubon Society's top 100. This is a Washtenaw County bird. This was taken at Independence Lake Park. Again, just a fantastic place to get yellow warbler photos. So another photo just makes me smile. So there was a pile of peanuts. That must have been a particularly good peanut. I mean, it's got a peanut and a sunflower combo. And as this bird was taking off, the other chickadee grabbed it by the tail feathers to prevent it from getting away, which it did get away. The tail feathers just slipped right through. So the chickadee that was grabbing the tail feathers had to choose like another peanut, of which there were plenty, but apparently like that was the best one. So this is my final photo. This is my absolute favorite bird, the tufted titmouse. They're cute, they're super sassy, wonderful birds to photograph. And this one is posing on some goldenrod. And that's all I have. Do we have any questions? Yeah, so, oh yeah, absolutely. So the question was, what kind of camera do I use? Most of these photos were taken with a Nikon D500 with a 200 to 500 meter lens. I'm currently using a Nikon Z9, which is a mirrorless with a 500 millimeter. Really, you can take amazing photos with whatever gear you have. But I've found that having at least a 300 millimeter really helps for bird photos. You had a, what lens? Well, the 500, It's the 500 PF with Nikon. So one of the things so the 200 to 500 is 3 pounds, I want to say. And I've got these little T-Rex arms. So after a while, like my arms would start to shake, and I prefer to hand hold because like there's something gone over here, but then there's like an eagle flying over and there's stuff happening over here. So for the Nikon 500 PF, it's a special kind of glass that's lighter. So when I'm looking at lenses, like Nikon came out with the 800, I don't remember if it's 5.6 or 6.3 for the aperture, but it's like 3 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but like after a while, like my little arms will start to shake, which again is a workout, but it can be a challenge. Any other? Yeah.
Two questions from Zoom, which I'll do one at a time. First one is, how do you deal with condensation in cold weather? And I don't think you're.
How do I handle condensation in cold weather? So the gear I have is weather resistant. I do have to be on the extra safe side, I have a bag from Ruggable. Is it Ruggable? So you can purchase camera bags that you fit over the lens and the camera body. So yeah, so I have like my gear is weather resistant. But sometimes with these snowstorms that we go through, I like to have like an extra camera bag to protect the gear.
And the next question on Zoom, what would you recommend either reading or websites to get started in bird photography? That's
All right.
a question. I'd like to say something other than reading or websites.
I could give talk for hours about that one. So the question was how for reading, like where to get started with bird photography. So the way I got started is I bought a camera kit. And so a camera kit is like the base level. Like you can buy like a Nikon camera kit and you get like the camera body and like a couple of small lenses. And like, I like to just go out and take photos, and I'm like, oh, I got frustrated by this one thing. How do I learn how to do that? Audubon, if you search on Audubon site, they have some good articles. I'm trying to think. I feel like all these different resources are going to come to me later. I mean, really just going out to, I would say like YouTube and just like Googling something. Again, this is like, I would start the second slide of like photography ethics. I would start there, and then, yeah, I think searching through Audubon, yeah.
I mentioned a YouTube and blog person earlier, Backcountry Gallery.
Backcountry Gallery. Okay, yeah. So.
I really think he gets really nice work with photos.
Okay, perfect.
So I would highly recommend.
Okay, yeah. So Backcountry Gallery is a good resource there.
Can I recommend another one?
Yes, another recommendation.
If you're more advanced at it and you are trying to figure out how to set your camera up, there's a website called Mirrorless Comparison, something like that.
Okay, so for
The guy is a bird photographer, and he goes through several different models of cameras and how he sets his camera up for birds in flight.
oh, perfect.
So if you're interested in mirrorless comparison.
Mirrorless comparison. Okay, so David just mentioned for more of an advanced bird photography to go to mirrorless comparison. Some other good tips. Yes. Yeah, so it's, to give you an example. So I was walking down the nature trail and I saw someone throwing rocks at a red-tailed hawk so it could turn around. And like, so it's like that, your reaction, right? You're just like, nay, nay, like, and I didn't say anything at first because I couldn't figure out a polite way to start the conversation. So luckily I had a friend was like right behind me and they're like, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. So like stuff like that, obvious, right? Where it gets a little trickier is when can you use bird calls? Like I see that a lot. Like people will be playing, you know, on their phone. It's so easy, right? You just play the bird call, and it's so bad in breeding season because like a bird will be like, oh, here's another bird in my territory. I gotta go find it. So yeah, it brings the bird out for a great photograph, but it's like every moment for wildlife is like, it's life or death. It's like, is that really worth the photo? Where it starts to get into even grayer area is like, how close is too close to an owl? And like the answer for that is, it depends. So for ethics, it's really about respecting the bird. Like again, some of the stuff is obvious, like don't shake a branch, don't harass the bird. But like other stuff is not maybe as obvious, especially when you see other photographers. And luckily I see very few, but using bird calls to bring them in, like baiting is really not good. But those websites go through a lot of like what may not be as obvious to respect the bird.
You say baiting with that.
Oh, so like not,
Sounds like bird feeders.
so not, yes, thank you. I should clarify that. So the question was about baiting birds. So it's really the raptors. So like when you think like baiting, like if you're putting out peanuts, like songbirds, that's fine. It helps them survive in the winter. If you're bringing live mice from the pet store, like anything with baiting raptors is a big no-no because then they're depending on people to survive at that point. Yes.
That segues to a question from the chat. Someone asked about your hand of snacks. Could you speak a bit more about what
So,
your stream?
oh, let me go back here. Questions. Oh, well, there's my final slide. So I post on my the hand of snacks. So I imagine most people, I post videos every day on my social media of my hand, which I call the hand of snacks. And so this is done at Kensington, which is an amazing place to hand feed the birds. And I'm there almost every day. And they were asking about technique. Just, oh yeah. So, yeah, I've asked, like people ask what the trick is, and really the trick is just to go to Kensington Metro Park in Milford. Absolutely worth a visit if you haven't been there before, especially in the colder months, because the little birds are very hungry and they're very appreciative of any sunflower seeds or peanuts that you can offer. Yes.
I just want to add that some people ask me about the ethics of hand feeding birds, and at Kensington, those birds have evolved with hand feeding. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and when I was a little girl, we used to hand feed birds. So it's the cat is out of the bag there. Those birds are slightly more tame than they are anywhere else. And so I don't think that the hand feeding is harmful.
Thank you. And yes.
Wouldn't that encourage the same dependency?
So
Natural dependency on humans?
that,
As far as, we have a farm, we're actually not far from Independence either, we mow our fields. And the hawks, they hear a certain tractor, they hear that brush hog start, and they follow us. And as you mow the spot, around the moles especially, or ducking back in, and these hawks just follow.
oh, like a buffet.
And it just never occurred to me, it is actually about it anyway, we have to go on pasture.
Right.
But the fact that we didn't hearing, it's natural, it's just making it a little easier for them that way. quite see the difference between providing an easy meal for a raptor and providing an easy meal for chickadees.
So that is a great question. And the Audubon Society has a great article about this because it makes it like you're feeding the birds, right? Like what's the difference? So with songbirds, they don't get dependent on one source of food like a raptor would. Like a raptor is like looking for that one big meal as opposed to a chickadee or a tufty. Like they're gonna look at different sources. So like when you put out a bird feeder, that's an additional source, or like the hand of snacks, like that's an additional source. They're not dependent on your bird feeder or like this one source. So that's why like if you go on vacation and you don't fill up your bird feeder, like that's gonna be okay, because a raptor would be like, okay, this person is feeding me mice, I'm gonna depend on this person for food, like they're not looking anywhere else. And again, the National Audubon Society, they have a great article called When Is It Okay or Not Okay to Feed Birds? And it talks about feeding birds in general. And they go into that in really good detail. But that's a great question.
Yeah, it still seems a little fuzzy though, based on my observations of the raptors around my farm, that more than my chickens are. But if we're out there, the dogs are out there, which they are there guarding. So that's squirrels over here, chipmunks over here, and voles out there. And I don't see them thinking, well, I can't go hunt anywhere else because I'm so used to being able to pick off an easy chicken.
Right, I think that like the raptors, if they're going for like, I can't get at these chickens, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Or they say the same thing if you're providing them with mice and then you do it one day.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Maybe
They're pretty smart.
they're pretty smart, but I'm going with what the National Audubon Society says, and they say absolutely no feeding of raptors if you submit photos to contests. And it's not just the National Audubon Society, and they know that like you have been feeding these birds you've taken photos of, it's disqualified because it's unethical. So again, I would go back to that article, and I see Juliet has some input.
Another thing with raptors becoming habituated to humans is that more of them will be injured or hit by cars. It will become nuisance animals if they're dive bombing humans because they're used to being fed by flies. So it's a different sort of thing with a large meat-eating bird versus a small bird in terms of the habituation of a large bird to humans is a dangerous situation.
And some of these photographers are using bait, they're trying to get, say, an owl in action. And so they're actually literally, they're literally dragging, prey away and making them work.
We get some real good shots following our brush.
Yeah. Next time I see them, I recommend that they just come to their farm
Yes.
instead.
What's happening in the folks on Zoom aren't able to hear all of it.
Oh, yeah. So to sum up, so Juliet had some great input about why feeding raptors is a bad idea, and it's because they would be habituated to humans, and when they get too close to humans, like they're getting close to like cars, and they could get injured, and that's why it's not a great idea.
One more technical question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Post-processing, what kinds of software do you use?
Yeah, so for post-processing, I try and keep it to a minimum, so like contrast, shadows. I use Photoshop. I don't like to remove elements like such as branches. I do occasionally use Topaz denoise, which is really popular. That'll remove some of the noise from images. It does, I don't use it too often because I found like it makes some, like, especially with bird feathers, particularly grainy. So really slight changes in Photoshop, like in contrast, changing the exposure if that needs to be changed, and then running it through Topaz denoise if like the background is super grainy. Yeah.
you have any follow-up on whether the goose?
Well,
Rains or?
well, so this is to end today's meeting. The National Audubon Society interviewed me for an article about this family, and I'm laughing because I have to laugh because otherwise I will cry. But if you look up that article, it's like the second line is, "The goose is dead." So unfortunately, he was found passed away on a golf course, and nobody knows quite sure what happened to him. So it was like not the ending that we were hoping for, because it was like, is the goose gonna migrate with the cranes?
How do you know that goose was abandoned?
It wasn't banded. I mean, I guess the reason I think it was that goose, you have the great questions. So I noticed the goose was not with the family the day before. And then people went on a goose chase and they found a dead goose on the golf course. So I guess it could have been a different goose, but it's the fact like this goose. Yeah, I know, like, I mean, they did like walking around on the golf course. So I don't know if the judge will buy that one, but yeah. So it was unfortunate.
What time of year did he not be with the family anymore?
So it was, what month was it? I think it was late July, when it was before migration for sandhill cranes. So I want to say it was late July or early August.
They were all flying.
No, they were not. It was before, yeah. It was before, so he wasn't able to fly at that point. So the question is, do all sandhill cranes migrate? The answer is no. Again, if you go to Kensington, I've seen yeah, they get quite close to you at Kensington, and I've seen a flock of 50 in January, like if you get there early in the morning, which was like the snow. I mean, they look so cold. If I was a sandhill crane, I know I would be off to Florida. Most of them do, but a few of them like to hang around. And David, do you have a question?
Yeah, this is kind of in a different direction. What's your favorite way to keep the sandhill away from you when they are attached?
Oh no. Oh no. So the question is, what's my favorite way of keeping the sandhill cranes away while they are attacking me? At Kensington. Yeah. So the sandhill cranes, people are not supposed to feed the sandhill cranes. Some people feed the sandhill cranes and they will get very aggressive. So my tactic is, so I keep my camera and my lens. So if I'm on like a boardwalk and I can't, like, unless I'm like going into the marsh to get around them, I keep my camera and my lens between me and the bird, because I've got that spear of a beak. And then I walk real fast. I mean, there have been times, this was a couple weeks ago, I saw, and this was one of the young sandhill cranes, and it made me so concerned. It was kicking, it was flying up in the air and kicking a woman because she would not feed it. And so I know, I was like, and she actually seemed like okay with it. Like I was not okay with it. So I was like running up to it and like clapping and informing the bird that I am very big and very scary. And the bird didn't really seem to buy that. I've seen people also pick up like large sticks, like just to like keep some distance from them. But yeah, they can get really aggressive, and that can be scary. Like I've heard, I'll be walking down the path and there's been a couple times where I turn around and like there's this bird with this 6-foot wingspan like coming at me, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is it. But yeah, usually camera between me and the bird, and then like I walk real fast. Any other questions? Yes.
Jocelyn, I wonder if you would let the Zoom audience and everyone here know that this is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, okay, so for our Zoom audience, this has been recorded, and this will be going up on our, the Washtenaw Audubon Society YouTube channel. And if you have any other questions, I have my emails up here, all my socials. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Well, thank you, everyone.